Doctors of Reddit, what do we not know about the human body? I have a very niche answer. We don't know what is supposed to naturally bind to the area that benzodiazepines work at. Diazepines, BZD, are medications like Xanax and Valium. They produce anti-anxiety effects, and they have a very distinct chemical shape to fit into the BZD site in a group of 5 proteins. But we don't know what is supposed to go there. Many medications are analogs of naturally binding molecules that we copy and then use to create an effect. The BZD site is for something, we just don't know what. Edit. All you wonderful people, I am headed to bed. I will answer anything else in the morning, and feel free to reach out if you ever have a question. Witnessing so many genuinely inquisitive and intelligent people has made my day. Please never stop learning. Thank you all. So essentially, we're trying to find the endobenzo. One of the few absolutes in medical science is that nobody born blind has ever developed schizophrenia. This fact is so goddamn interesting because to me, I will say, not at all educated in neuroscience or psychology, that has to mean that schizophrenia is intrinsically linked with vision specifically, because even though people with schizophrenia have visual and auditory hallucinations, born deaf people have been known to develop it. So, what makes being able to see such an important factor in getting it? I need the smart people to figure it out immediately. Option here. We still don't know exactly what makes labor start. We know all about the mechanics and physiology, but we don't know what makes the average uterus say it's go time. I'm an anesthesiologist. We still don't really know why inhaled volatile anesthetics like sevoflurane, the principal anesthetic agent used to maintain general anesthesia, work. We kind of have an idea of maybe how it happens, but really we don't know. It's commonly said in my field that whoever figures this out will win the next Nobel Prize in medicine. Edit. I'm happy to answer questions about anesthesia in the comments. I'm real glad I'm 8 weeks post-OP in reading this, and that I didn't have this knowledge during my 30 childhood surgeries lol. To me, the anesthesiologist is a god. I trust them more than my surgeons. Never had one who wasn't kind and compassionate. There's still a lot about the immune system that's undiscovered. We haven't figured out autoimmune diseases, e.g. MS, lupus. We know that for whatever reason something's flipping a switch in people, but we haven't fully figured it out yet. I had a lecturer at medical school say, half of medicine is made up, we just don't know which half. As a variation on this, half of what science knows now will be disproven in 50 years, we just don't know which half. I'm a sleep specialist. While we do have some good theories about some of the functions of REM as far as how it affects the brain and health, we still don't fully understand the purpose of dreaming. Like, why do we dream at all, and why do dreams have a narrative instead of random, incomprehensible imagery? Unfortunately, this is unlikely to even be solved. I think it's nice our brains will put on little movies for us while in shutdown mode. It makes me wonder if it's possibly to encourage us to keep sleeping, like when you're in that half-awake, half-asleep state and dreaming. One I didn't see mentioned, we apparently don't know precisely how our bodies can distinguish gas from poop. We have some ideas. We know there are a ton of nerve endings in the area, but the precise mechanism of our bodies telling our brains, this is a fart, let loose, isn't really understood. What blows my mind is, it's distinct enough that we even pass gas while asleep. That difference must be wired deep. This is what Reddit is for. Not MD, but PhD. Right now we are working on the connection between our intestinal microbiome and neuropsychiatric disease and brain aging. For instance, people with inflammatory bowel disease are more likely to develop dementia and experience comorbid anxiety and depression, but we don't know why. 100 years from now, people are going to be like, and in ancient times they didn't know your digestion affected your brain. The gut microbiome, while it's well known that the gut plays a huge role in digestion, researchers are discovering just how much our gut bacteria affect other parts of our health, like mood, immunity, and even brain function. This even extends to diet generally, because it is almost impossible to study effectively and ethically. For example, an experiment looking at the long-term impact of eating a specific food is unreliable at best. People are naturally not good at sticking to a specific diet. Even if someone does stick to the diet, it is hard to prove they did. People are not honest about what they have eaten. People eat lots of different things, making it almost impossible to prove causation rather than correlation. Funding also generally comes from the food industry introducing potential bias. So how can an experiment be designed? As an example of how little we truly understand, the single largest and most detailed experiment into the harmful impact of saturated fat will never be repeated for ethical reasons. They fed a mental institution-specific and controlled diets. The results demonstrated that people who ate more saturated fat had higher cholesterol and better health outcomes. When the experiment didn't demonstrate what they had expected, it wasn't fully published until the research was uncovered and republished decades later, when even one of our most basic assumptions, saturated fat is bad for health, may not even hold true. How much do we truly understand? How basically any of medical science works in relation to women and their bodies. Almost all the data is based on men, and a lot of it almost exclusively. This drives me crazy. The rules on clinical trials need to change to ensure that both genders are represented in the study findings. Selection criteria is always healthy men and postmenopausal women, when women's hormones have a massive impact on health for most of their lives, and it remains unstudied. Being a woman is difficult when it comes to receiving care. The answer to many ailments is anxiety, depression, and being a woman for fuck's sake. Viagra, a drug found to significantly improve period pain, an actual thing that most women deal with every month. The research was canned. The drug isn't licensed for women. Meanwhile, men are gifted erections because it was studied widely. Men's sexual pleasure is more important than the pain women face for nearly a quarter of their fertile lives. Had a pathologist tell me that the interesting part of his job wasn't finding out how someone died, it was seeing everything that can be wrong with someone, so many life-threatening or life-altering horrible things that a person can have going on and still be alive. Good friend died of pneumonia. He was too busy at work, couldn't afford to take time off. He kept using OTC meds for the symptoms. He died unattended, so the coroner had to get involved. They did an autopsy. His body had cancer in 3 different places. He never stopped. Dude was old-time tough. For many medicines, it's not clear how they work, or even if they work. For example, look at the actual efficacy trials of name-brand antidepressants. When you look at them in aggregate, they look like they barely work. Yet, basically everybody knows somebody whose life was saved by a specific antidepressant. When my doctor prescribed me propranolol for my migraines, he basically said it's a blood pressure medication, but it also works for migraines. Nobody knows why it reduces migraines, but it does, so we prescribe it. And he's right, it does work, LOL. Apparently, we know next to nothing about fibroids, which like 75% of women have at some point in their lives. That's great, considering that the largest one removed was 100 pounds, so not exactly a minor issue. There are theories about different hormones and what things put you at higher risk, but aside from having surgery to have your existing ones removed, there is basically no information on what you can do to prevent them from coming back. This and endometriosis. It's wild. And crazy-making. The biggest one I once solved. How we remember things. How does our memory work? Some headway has been made at MIT, but it hasn't been completely cracked yet. If our brains were simple enough for us to understand them, we wouldn't be able to understand them. We don't know the precise mechanism by which B12 deficiency causes nerve damage. We know that it happens, but not why. Many medical things are like that, easily observed and proven cause and effect, but complex and unclear mechanisms. Much of biology is still a black box to us. Neurological stuff in particular is full of this. Lots of we definitely know damage here causes effect XYZ, but not why. Not a doctor, but the amount of shrugs I got from doctors when I asked questions during my treatment for breast cancer was astounding. That's not to imply they were useless or didn't know what they were doing. I just asked a lot of questions, LOL. Me, why do I need to take Claritin before chemo? Nurse, it helps with bone pain. Me, oh, that's interesting, why is that? Nurse, nobody knows. Me, what's the coating I'm experiencing in my arm following my mastectomy? Physical therapist, nobody actually knows what it's made of or where it comes from. Me, why am I suddenly unable to eat gluten following my cancer treatment? Gastrodoc, trauma probably. Having cancer really made it clear to me that so much of the human body is still a mystery. Why our brain doesn't use its stem cells to heal itself. Is it stupid? Have you ever had a muscle knot? Well, apparently, they're undetectable by any test or machine, and medicine hasn't yet figured out what's going on in our bodies when we experience them. Yet we have figured out that if you stab them with a needle, it fixes them. It's not cancer, it's cancers, and every specialized and stem cell, undifferentiated pluripotent cell, is at risk of mutating into something that doesn't stop multiplying. The cancer of a specialized gland cell is called adenocarcinoma. The cancer of a skin cell is called squamous cell carcinoma. The cancer of a melanocyte is melanoma, and so on. So anytime someone says they're hiding the cure for cancer, they are being magnificently ignorant. How it gets conscious. Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a disease that causes diffuse scarring fibrosis of the lung. Anytime you hear idiopathic in medicine, it essentially means we don't know what causes it. There are multiple fibrotic lung diseases that they have identified the causes of over the years. In general, any idiopathic illness is likely something we will know much more about one day. This just comes first to mind. I'm a derm. We don't know what exactly causes itching, like the molecular pathways for it. That's why it can be so hard to find a good treatment when a patient comes in for itchy skin. I'm a nurse, not a doctor, but in school I learned that when in vitro fertilization was being pioneered, scientists were unable to create an embryo from the combination of sperm and egg. It wasn't until they added female secretions in that they were able to produce viable embryos, and they don't know what role those secretions play in the process. This was about 15 years ago, so if anyone has new information on the topic, I'd love to hear it. If I'm not mistaken, don't we still not have a definitive cause for migraines? Edit to add. It took me years to find my trigger, sleeping on my back, exacerbating my apnea. I would wake up with a raging headache at 4 a.m. and barf 2-3 times an hour until 2 p.m., twice a month. I couldn't eat, drink, take medicine, drive, talk, watch TV, or think. I would spend the day alternating between the bathroom floor or in bed hallucinating from the pain. I got a Dave piercing nearly 4 years ago, and it changed my whole life. I can count on one hand the number of times a headache has made me barf since getting the piercing. If I wake up with one, I maybe get sick once, take an extra strength Tylenol, and lie down for an hour, and it's like I never had anything wrong to begin with. Edit 2. I feel like migraines are one of the most polarizing health issues. Ask any sufferer, and they'll tell you about the absolute hell they experience, and everyone's triggers and cures are different. Another, how babies/young children assimilate so much information so quickly. It can't, as far as I know, be replicated by a computer. And brains also use so much less energy than a computer to do it. Like your brain uses a couple light bulbs worth of power to do what ChatGPT cannot do with all its many servers, and no one really knows how. Mental health professional rather than MD, but we still don't know much about the mechanisms of schizophrenia or bipolar. We know some things about them, but there's a lot that's very confusing. I have bipolar disorder and research all my medications, and it's incredible how completely different every bipolar med is from every other. A fucking rock, lithium carbonate, can be as effective as a hardcore antipsychotic or anti-epileptic medication. What the hell is that? Not a doctor, but this was posted a few years ago when the same question was asked. We still aren't sure what causes precordial catch syndrome. Reddit is where I finally put a name to the sporadic chest pain I had in my teens/20s that goes away when you take a deep breath. Not to diminish your pain and experience, but I love how the wiki states treatment consists of reassurance. Got a chuckle from me. Rabies pathology, Alzheimer's etiology, encephalitis lethargica/chronic fatigue syndrome. As someone with chronic fatigue, it can be so frustrating that there isn't much known about it. I've had some doctors who believed me and others who basically wrote me off when I told them about it. The uncanny valley fear. Why are humans unnerved and or afraid of things that sound like, mimic, look like, or act like humans but aren't human? Think of seeing human-shaped shadows, dolls, robots, animals walking on 2 legs versus their usual 4, AI. It's fascinating how we all have that feeling about some of the same things. I like the theory that it's because of corpses, which in the worst conditions definitely have that subhuman appearance. They could be the host to a deadly disease, so we evolved to avoid them, hence why we still fear things that look almost human, but not quite. Allergies, specifically food allergies. And why do adults develop them after never reacting to them before? It's really frustrating to deal with a new allergy since it can take a while to figure it out. It was safe to eat before, so you don't even consider it. I always liked pistachios as a kid since they were a holiday nut to me. My mom would decorate the table runner with nuts and fruits every Christmas. I'd even suck on the salty shells and spit them out in a pile. Then, one year, as an adult visiting for Christmas dinner, my throat started to close a short while after eating one. Scared me really bad, but Benadryl helped after a few minutes. The only new thing I'd eaten at dinner was this hibiscus tea/lemonade thing my sister had brought. She was experimenting with healthy recipes, so I thought for sure it must be that. I dunked my drink out and just had water. A couple of minutes later, I had another pistachio and had to go through the whole thing again. Haha. As a side note, The next year's Easter, I found out my stepmom's green jello salad was a pistachio jello after I had a reaction to eating it. That also took a while to figure out, because why would there be nuts in a jello salad? I thought it was one of the fruits instead. Not a doctor, but why is tinnitus so hard to cure? Here, never mind. Patient of Reddit here with chronic illnesses that no one can solve and injuries that have never healed. We know very little about the human body, but still more than we used to. Not a doctor, but I have a rare chronic illness. Young doctors are more open to helping me, while older doctors, especially male, are not very helpful. I've heard doctors say, "I've heard of your disease. We had a lecture on it once." So there is so much they do not know. My friend with psoriatic arthritis, a chronic pain condition, has the same experience. He said he gets the worst anxiety when he has to see older doctors because so many have either accused him of being a drug seeker or said he's too young to have his condition because he's in his 30s, and most people associate arthritis with people on their 70s. Why we sleep. This always takes me back to one of my favorite quotes from an expert. As far as I know, the only reason we need to sleep that is really, really solid is because we get sleepy. Founder of the Stanford Sleep Research Center, William Dement. I sure hope someone on here points out how little is known about menopause, hormones, and women's health in general. The placenta is the only human organ grown for a specific purpose, then discarded when it's no longer needed. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to press like button and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys. If you want to suggest interesting Reddit posts, drop them down in the comments. Till next time, peace.